If I were to say that zoom lenses are better than prime lenses for shooting real estate, that would be true. However, it wouldn't be the whole story because although it's true, it doesn't tell you why. And the reason is different than what most people think. After all, primes are faster, sharper, better corrected for distortions and aberrations. So why then are zoom lenses better for shooting real estate? I think most people would guess incorrectly that the reason is because of workflow. That certainly is a reason, but it's not the primary reason. The reason is because you can leverage more creativity out of a lens by manipulating perspective distortion. If that sounds complicated, it isn't really. And I'm going to give you an example of how this can be done. So here are a couple photographs of a home that I recently shot for a real estate agent client. It's nothing special, small tract home on barely anything of a lot, but it was vacant and I had this topic in mind to make a video about, so I took the opportunity to do a couple shots to exemplify what I mean by perspective distortion, and especially what I mean by using it as a creative tool. So a lot of times people confuse perspective distortion with lens distortion, with barrel distortion and such, and that's not what we're talking about. You can correct optically for barrel distortions within a lens, and there are lenses out there that are known to be very well corrected for barrel distortion. Perspective distortion is just a byproduct of focal length. It happens both at wide focal lengths and also at telephoto focal lengths. And we're talking specifically about spherical lenses here, which is most of them, right? Most people are familiar with what happens when a telephoto lens zooms way in at a tight focal length to a subject. The background compresses, and indeed, I use this technique shooting real estate sometimes when I want to show a view out of the window to be a bit more majestic. The same thing happens in reverse when you shoot very wide. The easy thing to figure out, and the one that most people do, is that when you shoot with a much wider focal length, it makes rooms look bigger, makes them look wider, makes them look longer or deeper. However, there's something else to consider when you shoot very wide, and that is that a lens is spherical. So wide-angle lenses, not only is the room going to look bigger because it goes further into the distance, but things that are near the lens also get stretched out. And so, for instance, if you're parked right at the end of a coffee table, it's going to look like an aircraft carrier coming toward you. If you have something that is circular in the edges of the frame, like a wall clock, it's going to appear more of like an oval shape. And that's just a byproduct of shooting with a very wide field of view and being very close to something. Landscape photographers actually use this quite a bit to highlight the foreground in certain shots, because when they shoot wide, the foreground is amplified, whereas the background and those mountains in the back just look like the little speed bumps. Let's take a look at a couple different shots in this home that I did. And what I was doing is I was framing from the window on the right. So if I have the wall space, I can see the edge of the window frame on the right. And then I also was framing to the doorway on the left of the frame. That's actually, I think that's a little laundry room. But I took this opportunity to shoot a very wide shot, and you will see that because the window on the left is very stretched out, right? It's close to the camera, and so it's stretching toward the camera. And then what I did is I took just a couple steps back and I went into 35 millimeter. I was on a 15 to 35 lens. So the first shot I shot at 15, the second one I zoomed into 35, tried to get my framing the same. It didn't quite work the same just because the field of view changed too much, but you will see just stepping back and zooming in makes a huge difference. I want you to take a look at the right side of the frame and this window. So the one at 35 millimeter is kind of more true to life what that window looks like in real life. However, I delivered with a little bit of cropping, but I delivered the other one. I delivered the 15mm one because I used that perspective distortion to show that there's a lot of natural light coming in the house and to show that the space is large, because it is a pretty large space right there where that counter, that bar counter and the kitchen intersect with the other passageway to the other rooms back there. So don't always think of perspective distortion as bad, because it absolutely is not. And it's something where you can use it as a tool with a zoom lens to tune your shot creatively. Whereas if you're shooting with a fixed focal length, even though that focal length may in fact be optically better, because most of them are optically better lenses, you take away a really powerful tool for creativity. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love to have you like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments below if you have used techniques like this to shoot interiors to kind of tune your creativity. And if you would like to see my 2-lens real estate loadout, what I think the 2 lenses that you need to have, and often the only 2 lenses that I will ever use, I will leave a link to it right here, and I'll see you soon. Peace.